January 24th. At this time, Mr. Carasilli, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Carasilli. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call?
Mr. Carasilli? Mr. Dillard? Mr. Lawson? Mr. Murdoch? Mayor Sheevy is absent. Mr. Sturbins? Mr. Wood? Mr. Wowo?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we have a quorum this morning. I do not have any public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak under public comment at this time? Seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Can I get a now we're on to item C, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion at this time. I have a motion from Mr. Murdoch. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Wowo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And just a little housekeeping point of order prior to, we do have new microphones in front of you. You have to push the little man with the speaking voice to talk this morning, so we want to make sure we get everybody on the record. All right, on to item D, approval of minutes for the December 6, 2018 Board of Directors regular board and retreat. Are there any changes to the minutes as written at this time? Seeing none, looking for a motion. A motion from Mr. Murdoch. Do I have a second? A second from Mr. Wood. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Mr. DeLone, we are on to presentations from RSCVA staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd first like to introduce from SMG, Michael, if you'd stand, Mr. Michael Day is the new general manager of all of the SMG operated facilities in Reno. Michael we won't hold it against him. He is a graduate of the University of Washington and Washington State, and he's from a Westerner. He has spent quite a bit of time with SMG, most recently in Louisiana, and he and his wife have moved to Reno, Nevada. And Michael, welcome, and we look forward to your great success and positive future here.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
Okay, thank you. And I know you have a busy morning, so feel free to depart anytime you wish. Okay, thank you. Happy to report that at the request of the RSCVA, Travel Nevada has increased funding for RASC, the Regional Air Service Corporation, by another $50,000 a year. This will now bring their annual contribution up to $100,000. This new level of funding will take effect on July 1st. RASC has now professional management through Carl Roboto, and we anticipate RASC's efforts in 2019 to be quite robust. And we should go on the record and formally thank today Travel Nevada and its acting executive director, Brenda Nebeski, for the increased funding. It's greatly appreciated. The Downtown Reno Business Improvement District, which is also now known as the Downtown Reno Partnership, has held 2 board meetings, most recently on December 20 and January 17. I represent the RSCVA as their advisory board member without vote. Refresh your memory, we did participate in the funding of the Downtown Reno Business Improvement District to the tune of $100,000. A few highlights of their board meetings is they now have 14 ambassadors that are now fully employed, with 13 of those working directly on the streets downtown. Of those 14 persons, 2 have prior social work background, and the BID wishes in the next fiscal year to increase the number of ambassadors by double to a team of 30 persons. The BID anticipates finishing their first year of operations with a surplus of $330,000, which their board voted to roll over to next year. This is resulting from They're getting a late start on hiring the executive director and the 14 ambassadors, hence a $330,000 forecasted surplus. In Incline Village, with our friends up there, the Incline Village Crystal Bay Visitors and Convention Bureau has had their lease renewed by Washoe County and the RSCVA. Going forward, that lease agreement calls for all maintenance and future repairs and improvements to be funded by Incline Village and not the RSCVA. There's also now a written agreement in place documenting that for the future. RFPs for the demolition of the exhibit hall at the Livestock Events Center are out, and a walkthrough for interested contractors takes place on site at the exhibit hall next Tuesday. We are happy to report that the exhibit hall does not contain any asbestos. A similar walkthrough for the indoor arena roof takes place tomorrow for interested contractors for that repair. And the Armory, the preliminary asbestos report has been completed, and we're working collaboratively with Washoe County to obtain the written permit for abatement, and then we will proceed there with demolition. On the February 12th, Wild Creek, that agreement will be reviewed by Washoe County, and the process continues to move forward for the transfer of property. On the entertainment side, thanks to SMG for your help with securing Jerry Seinfeld for mid-October. That should prove to be a popular show, and I know the downtown and the row were very happy about that. That concludes my remarks. Actually, we have some maintenance items, sorry, from the recent board retreat. Just to recap, some of the summary of strategic direction from the retreat can be summarized as follows. Number one, destination awareness. We've been given instruction to go deeper into the core markets of the Los Angeles Basin and the San Francisco Bay Area to increase destination awareness through increased marketing spend, both traditional and digital spend, and tourism sales efforts there. We are to maintain our Seattle advertising presence with continuing on focus on increased air service in partnership with the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority. Under group sales and tourism, priority number 2, the RSCVA has been instructed to continue our current group sales efforts and practices that have resulted in citywide convention business and consistent growth in the group business segment. Also to maintain through the tourism department our current level of effort in domestic tourism sales and opening China. Under facilities, we will continue to pursue the Reno Sparks Convention Center expansion and also fully leverage the RSCVA and SMG relationship to take advantage of opportunities that exist there, Mr. Day. And lastly, organizational sustainability. We are to maintain the importance of organizational sustainability and continue our efforts in community engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Dolan.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. We're going to be Ms. Cunningham.
Okay. I'd like to draw your attention to the scorecard at your place setting. And I apologize, we updated it from the one we sent out. Fine-tuning some numbers in the tourism sales is the change. So for November, our scorecard is looking good. You'll see that overall occupancy was down slightly, but the ADR was up almost 13% at an astounding $101.82 for the month of November, which is
Good.
Which is fantastic. And that translates to an increase in taxable revenue of 5%. So it's a great story. Air passengers were up 8% over last November. Not on your scorecard, but reported to me from the airport, flights into the airport were up 13.6% for the month of November, and number of seats into the market had a 7.2% increase. And just a side note, which is interesting, from the STAR report, we saw that South Lake Tahoe occupancy was up 30% November over prior year November. And we feel that may be attributable to the campfire smoke and people escaping for little bits of time, because that's quite an anomaly to be up 30% with no snow or no major other changes. So that was something to note. I'd like to bring up Ben McDonald to talk about, he's just going to give you a quick year in review as it relates to our PR firm in New York, and give you an idea of how they did this past year and what we have planned moving forward. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Good morning. Ben McDonald, Senior Communication Manager, RSCVA. So you'll remember in 2017, this review will be for the calendar year 2018. In 2017, we contracted with New York City-based PR firm Decker Royal Agency. Last year, the board also approved a renewal for a 2-year term. So that will take, is that too loud? That will take us through June of 2020. So far, things are going very well. Some of you may remember we had a national PR firm many years ago. Is that too loud?
No, you just keep talking.
All right, sorry. I don't really need the mic. We had a national PR firm many years ago. We went about 8 years without a PR firm, so kind of one-person show. It definitely helps. Public relations, as many of you know, is a relationship-based business. You have to build those relationships over time. We do a really good job locally. That can be a little bit more difficult as a single destination, pitching the many freelancers and national publications, online media, especially as that base diminishes. As you know, many layoffs, downsizing throughout the industry. So creating and maintaining those relationships has become much harder over the years. It makes it a lot easier when you have a strong team like Decker Royal representing you and other destinations as part of their daily pitches. Decker Royal also represents other organizations which help them build cash with travel publications. Abu Dhabi, they represent tour groups like Kontiki, and then also travel services like American Express Travel. We have bi-weekly meetings, and I'm very happy to say that the partners at the organization, Kathy Decker and Stacy Royal, are all on those calls about 90% of the time. We also have a team of 3 people, Jackie Sigmund, Kristen Slyke, and Devin Barker, who manage our day-to-day account and also work sometimes directly with the hotel partners as well, your PR folks. So in 2018, obviously the main thing we want to do is get journalists here. That's how we maximize our efforts there. And we brought in about 17 journalists, some freelance, some for specific publications, a lot of online publications. We did a ski fam in February. We'll be doing another one toward the end of this February, early March, which is great. We've got some great snow, so we'll be looking for some good coverage on that. We also did a fam around the balloon races. These national fams are about 3 days. So we bring them in, we take them around as much as we can, show them all the sites, take them to the nice restaurants, and make sure they have plenty of stories to tell. Some of those stories that we secured over the last year appeared on outlets like Thrillist, Elite Daily, Brit & Co., which really hits our new target demographics. And then also there was a nice story recently in Hemispheres. You guys probably saw it, United Airlines, on Nevada Museum of Art. That was from one of the journalists that we brought in September. So sometimes those things take a little bit longer. 3 months is actually a pretty short time frame to see that return. Those journalists that come into town, also they have some social following. We had about 17,000 engagements on their social media just from those 17 journalists. But the main thing we're going for with them is that media coverage, primarily online. We also do focus a little bit on the regional. Most of it is national, but we are still trying to bring in people from our target demographics, from our target markets, Seattle, LA, New York City. So those are the first places that we're looking to bring journalists in from, even though most of those people are writing for online pubs that obviously have a national draw. In 2018, we talk about proactive coverage. That's anything that Decker Royal has had their hands in, whether they pitched it primarily or worked on it secondarily. We had about 128 articles online, print publications. Other pubs, including MSN Online, Travel and Leisure, Up Rocks, Men's Journal. They also have relationships that they've built over the years with TV shows, midday shows. Let's Make a Deal, The Price is Right. We did some giveaways on those shows with the help of our hotel partners, which is very low overhead. Basically, who can offer up some rooms? We'll take whatever you can give us and then see if the TV show will take that from us and help us promote that. And so they did hit Let's Make a Deal and Price is Right. We also had a nice mention in November for one of our property groups on the Today Show. So Decker Royal also helps us organize these media desk side visits. So, again, it's all about getting in front of these people and talking about the product. We went to New York City in April, in part, obviously to help that JetBlue service. We really focus on air service regions when we're doing media desk side visits. We want to make sure that we're supporting our air service. We got in with Travel and Leisure, Elite Daily, Sherman, CNN Travel. We hit Seattle in October. Seattle Times, the food and beverage rider up there is supposed to be coming down here some point in the next 6 months. We're trying to work on that. But that was created by going up to Seattle, getting these face-to-face interactions, having coffee, having lunch, and making that happen. So that's the brief recap on Decker Royal. I wanted to throw in also some of our efforts in China now that we're international with PHG. I think the PHG group is doing a really nice job. Of course, there's two primaries on our PR efforts there in China and our 5 markets that we're in. They put out regular press releases. We talk on every 2 to 4 weeks. We'll interact usually online because of the time, by email because of the time difference. But they are actively pitching media there as well. We've also had 2 FAMs within that time. Obviously, we want to do these FAMs over ski season or surrounding a major event. So we chose Reno Rodeo and the Rib Cook-Off for the 2 FAMs that we did in the last year. Brought in about 10 journalists from China, got some really good imagery, really good coverage. They really enjoy it here, and I think PHG is doing a nice job as far as the media they're bringing in. I think they took about 100,000 photos in the one night that we were at the rodeo. I'm not exaggerating. So that is part of our PR program here, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Are there any questions for Mr. McDonald this time? All right. Seeing none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Jennifer, is that everything included for you? Okay. Thank you. All right. Mr. Larragetta.
Good morning. I'd like to bring your attention back to the scorecard to discuss Perdos room nights. For the month of November, we validated 16 groups representing 11,032 room nights against a goal of 18,863. Out of that 11,000, convention represented 8,054, and the sports segment represented 2,978. For the month of December, the validation number was 10,265, again against a goal of 18,429. For the first 6 months of the fiscal year, we're currently sitting at 85% to goal. The months of January and February, the pipeline looks very strong. We're very confident that by March 1, we'll be back on pace at 100% versus goal for the first 8 months. So as you, I'm sure you all appreciate, as we get into the holiday season, it's a lot of times people, decision-making and getting groups to sign off and validate contracts becomes a little bit more difficult versus the rest of the calendar year. So we fully anticipate January and February to be very strong months. A quick update as it relates to staff. I'm happy to announce that we have hired Mr. David Diomedes to be our regional director in the Southwest. David resides in Rancho Cucamonga. His background is primarily in hotel sales and then also representing Caesars Entertainment. He was the director of group sales and national sales manager for the Mission Inn and Spa and also the Westin Bonaventure. In the last 7 years, he's represented Caesars Entertainment, selling all of Southern California. David joined us on Tuesday. He was here this week for training. He returns home today, and then he will return back to Reno on Monday to continue his training and site inspections with all the properties and initial initial reviews are very positive, and everybody's very excited to have David on board, and he's going to do great things for us. We also announced that we are opening an office in Dallas, Texas. When you look at Lyft, the amount of corporate and association business out of that segment, and of course Texans' affinity with Reno Lake Tahoe, we simply felt it was a no-brainer and that that was a market that we needed to open. We posted the position. We've had 2 very strong candidates already apply. Interviews will be forthcoming in the very near future, and we hope to have that position filled by March 1st. Any questions for me today?
Looks like we, nothing at this time, Mr. Larragata. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we are on, and we do not, Mr. Jimenez, tourism.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. For November's monthly room night total reported for the tourism sector were 53,222 room nights, or decrease of 1,500 room nights from last November, and we were at an 87% target of 61,474. Year-to-date, room nights recorded in this sector were 337,795. However, we're 13,844 room nights behind last year. So I want to point out that not all properties are participating in this tourism reporting channel. It doesn't mean that the business isn't there. It's just not being reported since some properties are not all working in all the channels. On the partnership marketing side, we just concluded campaigns with Expedia, Priceline, and Travelport that concluded in December for the fall. And pleased to report that bookings were up an average of 9 to 10%, and ADR is also up for the properties that participated with us, which is always our goal. And more importantly, during a slower period, our booking windows are extended into the 40-day range in a slow period. So that's one of the goals of our campaigns always. So we're proud of that. On the China front, we just received the year-end report from PHG, and throughout the year, just a couple highlights. They conducted 137 in-face sales calls in China, 67 one-on-one media calls, which resulted in 319 media placements throughout China. And on the travel trade side, we just have a team that left yesterday for New York City to conduct a sales mission in support of the New York Times show and the JetBlue Vacations programming.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Jimenez at this time in regards to tourism? All right, seeing none. All right. And it looks like we are absent a financial CFO. Mr. Chisel is not with us this morning. But we do have an interim financial here in the binder. Would you like to cover that, Mr. DeLone, or are there questions about the interim financial that any of the board members have at this time? All right, seeing none. I do have a quick question for Mr. Larragata in regards to the group sales and the addition to the Dallas sales. Now, you do say that the Dallas is a no-brainer, and group sales is well within it. My question is, what is our airlift to and from? Do we have directs in and out? What is that? What is the capacity in and out of Dallas?
We do. So I don't have the exact numbers in terms of the number of seats on an annual basis, but both American and Southwest serve the Dallas Metroplex area into Reno with direct service. And then obviously being a major hub for American Airlines in Dallas, the one-stop connection is very relatively easy. Okay. Simplistic. And just to put things into perspective, so Alita Barrett, that currently oversees that territory, she's based and resides in Denver, Colorado. She's been working that market, specifically Texas, because that's really where in that south central part of the country where most of the business is. In 2.5 years, she has sourced and validated nearly 15,000 room nights, and that's being based in Denver. So we really feel that having boots on the ground in the market, establishing the one-on-one relationships with potential customers will only increase that number.
So for Nina, who's now it's Nina, correct?
Right now for that part is Alita Barrett.
Alita Barrett?
Yes.
So Alita, who's based out of Denver?
Correct.
And so how much of the Texas market was her territory? I mean, what did that account for? What percentage?
Texas represented, the numbers that we pulled, the 15,000 was just the state of Texas. So this new office will have the territory. We haven't specifically defined the states, but most likely it will be Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arizona. I'm trying to do my geography. But anyway, that whole
New Mexico.
bottom, New Mexico. Correct.
Yeah, that's one of those important states in between. Mr. Caroselli.
Just a comment that Texas is a major hub for group business. It supplies a high percentage of our group programs.
So with Aaliyah now, we having, her coverage will be what now?
So she'll maintain the states that she had, minus those 6 states.
The
On
bottoms.
the bottom half, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Most of her business and her production comes out of Missouri, comes out of
Midwest.
Kansas, yes, and Colorado.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. All right, seeing no, any other further questions on the executive update or staff update, corporate scorecard at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to the EMC research update. So Esther.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to, Esther
Morning.
Isaac, by the way, I'd like to introduce Sarah Labatt from EMC Research. You'll might remember that last month, December 6th retreat board meeting, we approved renewing their contract for another 2 years. EMC Research has been the research partner for RSCVA for the last 10 years. So we're really pleased to be able to continue working with them. And they're going to give us a review now of the brand awareness survey research that we've been doing for the last almost 2 years now.
And as they're figuring that out, I just want you to know that we had a meeting yesterday with all of the director of sales and sales offices from around the destination, where Sarah and her team went a little bit more in-depth into this. So we just shared it with all the properties.
Great, welcome. Welcome, Sarah, thank you.
Thank you. My name's Sarah Labatt from EMC Research. It's nice to see you all again. A quick update. I'll be brief here today and then happy to take questions about the research that we've been conducting here for Reno, Tahoe, in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and in Seattle. A quick overview of the work that we've been doing. As you recall, you launched your campaign in May 2017. We've done 4 waves of surveys at this point. We did one before your launch of your survey in April of 2017, then the campaign launched, then we did October 2017, April 2018, and October 2018. We do surveys in all 3 of the markets that you target with your campaign, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and Seattle. You can see there at the bottom the sample sizes for each of the 3. The Bay Area is our most robust sample size at about 1,000 interviews with the overall population. So a margin of error of about 3.5 percentage points. Los Angeles at 868 interviews, Seattle at 498. We do an oversample with your ad target. So your ads are targeted towards a population that's somewhat limited by demographics as well as some attitudinal characteristics. So we oversample that population to make sure when we're looking at the survey data, we have enough interviews in those target populations to be able to look specifically at those populations. So you can see there in the green columns the number of responses in each market in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and Seattle in your target markets. Big picture findings that we found from this survey. Overall, it's been very consistent with what we found in the past. You have a strong destination brand rating, strong metrics on desire to visit Reno, as well as intent to visit Reno, Tahoe. And your attribute associations remain strong in all 3 markets. So not only do they like the destination, but they think they know a little bit about it, positive associations with various attributes. In the Bay Area, we're starting to see a seasonal pattern of awareness about Reno, Tahoe, a little higher in the spring waves, a little lower in the fall waves. If you've been here a little while, you'll know that we've seen that in the past. When we were doing prior brand research in the Bay Area, we saw a very similar pattern where awareness was a little bit higher in the spring, a little bit lower in the fall. So when we saw gains, we'd sort of see a ratchet of gains. And that's something that we've seen really going back to at least 2008. Outdoors, beauty, and fun continue to be the strongest aspects of the Reno Tahoe brand. So those are the things that come to mind, the things they most associate with Reno Tahoe. And when we ask specific questions about the campaign that you're running, we get very strong measures of campaign effectiveness. We changed a little bit the ad content we showed in this survey. So we show some content and ask them if they recall seeing it. We ask them to tell us what they think it's telling them and some questions about the campaign imagery that we show. We continue to see people responding very well, saying they've taken actions as a result of seeing it. So, a good campaign that really matches the target population. So some of the numbers, and I apologize, I have a cold, so I have a cough drop. I'm trying to have another in my pocket too. So your brand rating for the destination, I'm good. I have a whole water also, thank you. I'm prepared. The rating of the destination, so the percent who report a favorable opinion of Reno Tahoe, This was strongly plus somewhat favorable, so just an overall, do you have a favorable or unfavorable rating of Reno Tahoe? You can see in the Bay Area, it's been very high since we started measuring. 83% have a strongly or somewhat favorable opinion, and that's been very consistent over time. Los Angeles, again, very consistent, 75% favorable. Seattle, 71% favorable. And you'll see as we go through this data, Seattle sort of is the audience with a little less information about Reno. It's not necessarily negative, but rather there's just more room to fill in some perceptions there. And in LA, the Bay Area, a lot of people think they know a lot about Reno. Some of it is the right stuff, some of it less. But, we see in the Bay Area, it's a very mature market, so it's really more about keeping the brand awareness high. LA and Seattle, it's really more about continuing to tell them more about the destination. What do they think they know about the destination? Across all three markets, we have the Bay Area in green, LA in blue, and Seattle in red here. How much do you agree that each describes Reno Tahoe? It's a place where I can take in the majestic beauty of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Nearly universal agreement with that. It's something they associate with Reno Tahoe. Is fun, is a mix of outdoor and urban activities, place I can indulge my passion for the outdoors, water, and nature, thriving entertainment and nightlife scene, a place to try new things. These are the top attributes across all three markets. We've seen this consistently over the past 4 surveys that we've done, that these are the things people in these markets associate with Reno Tahoe. And this is with the overall population, not just the advertising target. This is the same favorable question I just showed, but with the advertising target laid over it. So the blue bars are what you've already seen about favorable opinion about the destination among the overall population. The green overlays are just the ad target population. So a few things to note here. In the Bay Area, as I said, you have a pretty strong presence in the Bay Area. They know a lot about you. So when you talk specifically to the target, you're not going to get much higher numbers than that 83% we were seeing with the overall in the target. When you look at LA and Seattle, we do see a little bit more differentiation, particularly in the Seattle market with the ad target. These are the people that, for the past 3 surveys on these charts, you've been targeting specifically with ads in these markets. And we start to see some differentiation in LA, difficult market, very crowded, but we're starting to see some effect, and we'll see some more in this presentation in that target. And Seattle in particular, a lot of a much higher brand rating among people in your ad target. We also asked them intent to visit. How likely are you to visit Reno Tahoe in the next 2 years? Again, the green is your advertising target. The blue is the overall population behind. And what we want to point out here is that we're really seeing a much higher percentage of people saying that they're likely to visit Reno Tahoe in the next 2 years in your ad target versus the overall population. And in particular in LA and Seattle, you launched your brand campaign in May of 2017. We did a survey in October of 2017 and then another in April, and we saw some significant gains in April of 2018, both in LA and in Seattle. And we see that those are being maintained in those 2 markets. You keep staying in those markets with that ad target, and we see that that pays off in a sustained desire to visit. Again, in the Bay Area, there's a little bit more of a mature market, a little less room for those numbers to move up. This slide is based on a few different questions. Have you visited in the past 5 years, and are you planning to visit in the next 2 years? So sort of a combination of 2 questions. And I think what's really interesting here is that the Bay Area, this is just among your ad target population, so the people you're promoting the destination specifically to. It's about 40% who have been here in the past 5 years and say they intend to visit in the next 2. And another 40% of your target has not been here in the past 5 years and say they want to come in the next 2. So in that market, it's really a mix of, hey, remember the good time you had here. We'd like you to come back, right? Things that encourage repeat visitation and things that introduce the destination to people who have not been here recently and might not have seen the changes. So, in the Bay Area, it really is kind of a little bit of both worlds. LA and Seattle, it's a much higher potential for new visitors from those 2 markets. Among the ad target, 58% of the LA ad target is a potential new visitor, meaning they haven't visited in the past 5 years, and they say they'd like to visit in the next 2. Same with Seattle, about 53%. Who say they have not visited and would like to visit. So we see a lot of potential there, and as we look through the ad metrics, we see you're introducing this destination to a lot of those people, especially in LA and Seattle, with a lot of success. A quick look at what we showed in the survey. We're not going to play the video, but we did show the video campaign called Run the Room. We did do a radio spot that they played and listened to, and then we also have 3 images that are largely, I think, digital. There on the right. So to just show them, here's a look at what the campaign looked like so that we could ask some questions about whether they'd seen it and their impressions of it. We said, what's the main idea or theme of all of these ads? Very consistently, when they see the images, they watch the video, and they listen to the radio spot, fun is the big takeaway. Outdoor and active. We also hear in here a little bit less than with the prior set of images we showed and video, which was a little more outdoor oriented. These are more of a mix of outdoor and urban. This new execution of the campaign, a same theme, but a little bit of a different execution. But the overarching theme and through line is fun. It really comes through very strongly. Once we showed them the ads, we asked them if they remembered having seen or heard these before. You see the overall population on the left and the ad target there on the right. And you can see strong recall, especially with the target across all 3 markets. I do want to note in the Bay Area that red asterisk means that's a significant change from April to October of 2018. So we did see a little bit of a drop in awareness of the ads in the Bay Area. The change in LA is not statistically significant, so we wouldn't call that a change. And then in Seattle, you can see it's consistent. I do want to remind you, we did change what we showed them. And in particular, in the Bay Area, it was the video that had a decreased recall. And we did change the video we showed in this survey. I think the videos are both in the mix, but this one hadn't been out as long. So I don't want to necessarily overreach the conclusion that this is a real change in seeing a specific video, but rather we do see that in the Bay Area, a little bit of a decrease in general ad recall about the ads that we showed. But again, you're reaching your target markets with these ads, right, in the target stronger than in the overall population, which contains a sampling of everybody. They continue to view the ads positively. This is just for the most recent wave, but we've seen this consistently over the last 3 waves of surveys. The ads are credible and believable, involving and engaging. They grab my attention. A few things that I think are interesting here, make me want to visit Reno Tahoe. Things that are important to me and persuasive. They're at the bottom, a little bit of differentiation from the Seattle market, but certainly really, really strong metrics here for the campaign itself when we show them the imagery. They really react to it. And this is just among the ad target, the people it's designed to impact. And we asked them what did they do after seeing the ads. We gave them a list of activities they might have done and asked them to tell us which ones did you do after seeing these ads. And we see, this is just among the ad target. Lots of people saying they did something. The lowest measure actually in the Bay Area at 63%, saying they did 1 or more of these activities on the left, visited Reno Tahoe, ordered a planner, e-newsletter, et cetera. In LA and Seattle, similar to what we saw in some of the other numbers, we see there was a gain from October to April, and that was maintained from April to October of 2018, where we're really filling in new information about the ad. They're more likely to take an action. I think one of the things we heard yesterday from Wendy Hummer was that a lot of what your strategies in LA and Seattle are a little different in the Bay Area, a little more social media heavy, and we did see, we're not showing it here today, but a lot more of that social media engagement side happening in the LA and Seattle targets. In the Bay Area, it tended to be more towards the visited Reno Tahoe, signed up for a newsletter, also the social media, but not as strong as you're seeing in the markets that you've been much more explicitly heavy on the social media aspect. So quick conclusions. You've sustained this brand presence with this campaign now for about 2 years, and we're seeing some gains in the metrics, right, in the favorable rating, in the intent to visit, particularly in the markets where you're not known as well. In LA and Seattle, you get out there and you stay out there in front of your target, and we're seeing more intent to visit, more people planning to and wanting to visit. We also continue to see the seasonal pattern in the Bay Area, so that sort of up and down where it's higher in the spring and lower in the fall survey. And we see that the ads continue to be effective with the target that you've identified for this work. And with that, I'll happy to take any questions.
Ms. Batt, thank you. Are there any questions at this time? I want to thank you for the research. I think this is wonderful information, and I think it really drives home the point that what we're doing is effective, and has been effective in such a short amount of time, especially for our target markets. Well, not necessarily for you, Ms. Labatt, but more for our group sales. Mr. Larraguetta, in regards to the Pacific Northwest, what percentage of our group sales comes out of the Pacific Northwest?
So I don't have that number in front of me today. We have found that the Northwest is predominantly an FIT and leisure market for Reno Tahoe. The group segment has not performed to the level that one would assume because of the proximity. Also, your lift is a little bit limited out of Seattle and Portland, which are the two major cities in the Northwest that we go after. We have started to make a little bit more progress in the state of Idaho, looking at Boise. There's some interesting companies there that have showed interest in Reno on the group side, but I can get back to you on the exact number of what the Northwest represents, but it has not been as lucrative as one would assume.
Yeah, I'd like to see some numbers on that and what the potential may be for that group sales in that area. Now, Ms. Labatt, when you guys conducted the research with your targets, did you have the discussions about access to the market? I mean, other than outside of the brand campaign, challenges that may be in front of them, why they wouldn't select Reno over a different location?
Yeah, so, is this on? Yeah. This was an online survey, so there weren't really discussions. But, one of the questions we ask is about whether it's easy to get to from their market.
Mm-hmm.
I think, this is not a visitor study. This is a brand survey in the market.
Right.
We do see some lower agreement that it's easy to get to from Seattle than from LA or the Bay Area, particularly the Bay Area, generally agreement that it's easy to get to. So I think it's not necessarily that all about the awareness of whether or not they can access the area from their area. It also indicates, I think, a lack of actually having taken steps to follow through on planning a trip. I think we're
Right.
seeing really high numbers from Seattle that they would like to come.
The reason
Yeah.
and I thank you, and the reason I ask is, and I agree that it is just, a majority of research is for brand awareness, and I understand that. My question is that sometimes perception about access and will dissuade somebody from changing an answer on brand awareness, saying, man, it's not so hard. It's harder for me to get there than it is somewhere else. And so I wouldn't go and talk about getting a vacation planner or something like that, or I wouldn't visit their website, because even if the brand is great, if I know it's difficult to get there, that's one of the things. But thank you for your information. And I just have a brief comment as it relates to the Pacific Northwest. We see 71%, as a number of people who see Reno Tahoe as a positive area or have some benefit. And as Ms. Labatt pointed out, maybe it's a lack of information. And I think this is where our social influencers coming into play. We were very fortunate to have 14 of those individuals here over the New Year's holiday. I know Christina mentioned that at a retreat prior to those individuals. Between those social influencers represented about 1.5 million in total followers between those individuals. And we talk about the brand awareness, and it's great to have the brand out there, the marketing campaigns, the billboards, the posters, the ads, so to speak. But what these social influencers bring, and I think Mrs. Labatt just kind of hit on this, is that these social influencers actually live the brand. They live the story. They bring the story to life for us here. And when you have markets such as the Pacific Northwest that rely heavily on social media and different things of that nature, I find that it's really important for us to continue on initiatives such as social influence, because it is when we talk about markets such as Pacific Northwest that are key to social media, and that's where most of the demographics are tending to getting their information. When you have social influencers that are living those stories for us, it makes those our multi-tiered campaigns just complete in my perception. And all those individuals, like most of those individuals that came and visited us, are from the Pacific Northwest or live in the Pacific Northwest. So once again, more benefit for tourism, and that's right. But when we talk about potential groups up there and potential ability, they're seeing those planners are seeing these individuals. I'm sure they're following these individuals and watching what they're doing, and it makes a little bit more sense to us that if we can contain or convey a little bit more about our group sales or whatever through social influence, that might be beneficial as well. So those are all my points. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none? All right. Thank you, Ms. Labatt. We appreciate it. All right. We are on to legislative update. Mr. Wadhams. Mr. Dillon, do you want to lead us into this, or no? Or do you want to just let Jesse take us through, stab it? All right. Good morning, Jesse.
Morning, Commissioner. Members, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning to give you just kind of a quick overview of the legislative process and what we kind of expect and some of the reporting that I'll be doing for you guys this legislative session. The session begins in just about 10 hours and 10 days and 14 hours for those of you counting. I know I am. We have already seen 970 bill draft requests. There's about another 100 pre-filed bills. We're looking at probably somewhere about 10 times that amount by the time we get to the end of the legislative session in June. What I can say about my time doing the legislative sessions is they're all impossible to predict until you kind of get in there and see how the interaction between the various houses and the branches kind of go. But that said, the things we'll be looking out for, the things we'll be working on, broadly speaking, we're going to be watching for funding mechanisms for a possible convention center expansion and remodel. Governance issues like public records. We're going to be looking at open meeting law, other of those sort of touch points where the legislature sort of pushes on transparency, compliance, other items for local governments, essentially. Employer-employee relationships, those things are probably going to be on the legislative agenda, so I'll be reporting up on those. And and I apologize, I also have the cold that's going around. Also be looking out for those localized tax issues that may or may not impact revenue sources like transient room tax. We've seen a couple of proposals that could have touched on those in the last couple of legislative sessions, so obviously we're going to be looking out for those. With regard to the day-to-day operations, what I will be doing is sending out a weekly report of bills and bill draft reports to senior staff, to Phil, to Jennifer, and whomever else. That will also be accompanied with a sort of newsletter that's This Week in Carson. So you'll get to see, hey, here's what these various committees are doing. Obviously, the ones that we're going to be most concerned about are the government affairs committees, but obviously we can drift into a lot of different places, say judiciary or commerce and labor. But you'll be getting a committee report, a day-to-day sort of operational look at what Carson's doing. And I will be working with Phil and his senior staff on day-to-day operational issues within the legislative platform that I seem to recall you adopted in, I think it was August. I don't recall the exact date anymore. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, it's very early in the process. A lot of bill drafts, a lot of bills are still not out yet.
Any questions for Mr. Wadhams at this time? I just want to make a brief comment. We did, as this board, bring together and vote to support the legislative policy that the vice chair had requested, and he's done it at other places. And this board feels supportive of that ideology. So at this time, I think as session starts, and as Mr. Wadhams points out, in 10 days and 14 hours, what we will do is, obviously, Mr. Delone will be Mr. Wadhams' initial point of contact for all issues as it pertains, and they will operate off of this board's legislative policy. And if there are major direction changes that need to be brought to this board, what we will do is either call a special meeting or if it's as long as it's within range of our regular meeting, we'll just hold it at a regular meeting for any further discussion or any in-depth discussion as it pertains to legislative matters and bring it to the board as a whole. But Mr. DeLone and Mr. Wadhams will be our main point of contacts in Carson City. So with that, is there any other further discussion about legislation or as it pertains to the legislative session? All right. This is smooth. Are you guys awake? Is the coffee decaffeinated today? All right.
Thank you.
We're out of presentations. We are all done with E. We are moving on to marketing division. We are going to move into special event funding. Is Miss Isaac, would you like to take us into that? I saw
Yes.
Nina's here as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, Esther Isaac, Director of Marketing. Just before I get into the presentation on the special event funding for this year, I just want to draw your attention to our new events and festival brochure for 2018. Nina Brown and the rest of the staff have done an amazing job gathering all the information from our local events. We really have like over 300 events in here, giving people more reason to come to Reno and come often. This year, as we've done in past years, we've gone through an arduous process of reviewing applications for special event funding. Special event funding is a partnership that we have with our events. The board has approved in the past and in our current fiscal year $500,000 to be allocated towards special events. In your packet is a very detailed report of all those events that have applied. We had 24 events that applied for funding, and we are recommending 24 events receive some form of funding. We had over $700,000 in requests, but again, we only had $500,000 to work with. So the review of the applications was done by managers, RSCVA managers, and executive staff. We have a very formalized process to evaluate all the events in the different categories of new events, emerging events, legacy events. So if there's any other questions or any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions by the staff, board of staff about the special events? All right. Seeing none, I just have one quick comment. I think this is fantastic. It's nice to see quite a few of the equestrian events getting money again this year and trying to continue to push the Livestock Event Center. I really like that. Can you, Esther, can you tell me what the Coors Light Boneyard Blast is?
It's a motorized event, I know that.
Okay.
Nina, would you, no, it's not a motorized? I'm sorry.
Softball game.
Softball, yeah.
Softball.
That's why we have Nina here. Yeah, it's a 24-hour, right? Is that the
Just,
one?
I think that was an interesting name. Boneyard Blast, kind of an interesting name.
They do have a blast. I understand it's
good to know.
quite a party.
Good to know. All right. Seeing no discussion or any questions about this, I would make one other comment. You know, we do have, Esther, how many requests did we have this year?
25.
25 total, for a total of 750,000, and we're awarding 24?
Correct.
So there was only one we did not award to? Okay.
And the only reason why we didn't recommend any funds is didn't meet the criteria that we have set out. It's very explicitly described, and we didn't feel it met the requirements of being a special event.
Okay. Would have been, my question to you is, you and Nina, maybe this is a little too, anyways, my question is that would have benefited the board or the recommending board to have a little bit more flexibility in financial ability or money, so to speak? Is it 500,000? I mean, is it 500,000 too limiting?
I mean, I think that we're okay with the funds that we have. You're always going to get people that are going to be asking for way more money than we're in a position to provide. But Nina, do you have a perspective on that? Do you think that more money would help in getting more events to apply and be able to support them? I mean, we felt pretty good at the end of our process this year. And, you know, we look at what they're going to provide from a marketing standpoint. That's kind of what we're hoping to be able to support. If we didn't provide events with support to do those additional marketing, you know, efforts, especially out of market, to bring people from out of market here, would they be able to do any of that? So that's kind of what we're, the biggest part of it.
I guess my point is that, you know, I enjoyed that we do this for a number of, because I think special events are a lot about what our community is. My position has always been and will always be is that I think that this should be a starting off point, but some of these events need to start finding their own footing after some time. And I'd like to continue to, you know, nurture some of these brand new events, and if they need more financial to kind of get off the ground, because there might be a lot of diamonds in the rough, so to speak, as it pertains to new events. We can find some great things out there with some people that just maybe need some financial flow or some ability to do certain things. So, but that's my comments. Mr. Carousel.
Move to approve the recommended list.
Hold on one second, Mr. Carousel. Mr. Lawson.
You're moving too fast, Mr. Carousel. I'm going to agree with the chair. I think we need to put some more money. I've been advocating for $650,000 a year, just because of that startup. And I'm going to give you a great example on Sparks, the Pumpkin Palooza. Great event, right? Started with the first year around 1,000 people. Last year, I think in one day we had over 10,000 people, somewhere around 12 or 13,000 people downtown Sparks. And it's a great family event. And this thing has taken on a life of its own, so much so that we're even looking at becoming a pumpkin town in USA and the whole lighting. So it could become something that's a whole, America-wide, that Sparks is recognized as a pumpkin town for that. So it's grabbed the legs of its own, and it requests very little funding to get to where it is. So I'm in favor of going to a higher amount, $650,000. And hopefully, Nina, we have $200,000 to give away in Sparks. You're going to be with us when we do that, because that's always helpful. We give away another $200,000 for upcoming events in Sparks also.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Wowell.
Yeah, just from a marketing perspective, how involved are we with these special events that we're funding when we fund them? Are we sending people there to capture footage? Are we involved with the process and helping them deliver the special event? Like, how much involvement, I guess, how many resources do we allocate to make it a success?
Well, and we're very fortunate that we have Nina Brown to be a dedicated staff person to special events. She works very closely with all of our events, and even events that we don't have, that we're not partnerships in. Once we approve this list, then Nina goes back to each of those events and negotiates the final sort of agreements with them. And we get a lot of benefit from them. We're on their websites. We send out people. Yes, absolutely. We ask them for photography. If they are not in a position to provide us good quality, a lot of them are the newer events, then we send our photographers out, our videographer. So it truly is a partnership in what we're doing. And it's quite a benefit. We're also right now helping with some sponsorship and scholarship to attend the CalFest, which is going on now. And it also helps special events with education and becoming more aware of how to be a better event.
Awesome. Yeah, because the way I see it is just everything is a PR opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
As we're looking at these new markets, as we're looking to continue to sustain our presence in the Bay Area, I'm sure the Bay Area is more familiar with the iconic events than LA and Seattle. But as we're looking at LA and Seattle, maybe the iconic events aren't the approach that is going to capture their attention. So as we're kind of seeding some of these new events, the Pumpkin Palooza, whatever those events may be, I think it's just another opportunity for us to capture the attention and spark the imagination of these markets so that we can actually see that market capital grow. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wowell. Mr. Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, you guys are the experts, and Nina, you've had a lot of experience, so I know you know really a lot about this. So I really appreciate the hard work, because this is not easy. And the other thing is you guys know what RSCVA is here for, so it's pretty easy to make determinations on a lot of events, because you really got to drive your own coffers, as they say. And then there are the events, you know, that seed small, that become a local, but then grow into an out-of-town event. I mean, look at the size of Hot August Nights, technically when it started and where it is. So even Street Vibrations. So great job. Staff, you're great. Thank you. Keep throwing ideas on special events, because we need to give people a reason to come to Reno Tahoe. And this is how you do it, through events. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I would just like to agree and thank you guys for the hard work that you do. I really believe that it's important that there are special events, festivals, things along that nature, because as Mr. Murdoch said, these things can grow. We have the Tahoe Film Festival up in Lake Tahoe on the North Shore, and it's only been in existence 3 years, but it's a very classy event, and I'd like to see it grow in the future as well. So I'm all in favor of increasing funding as well.
Great. All right. Seeing no other comments from the board at this time, I do have a motion from Mr. Caroselli. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Murdoch. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Brown, Ms. Isaac, thank you so much for all your work on this. We really do appreciate your time and effort you put into this. I know it is extensive. All right, we are on to our final item, board member comments. Is there any comments from the board at this time? Mr. Dillard.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to request for a future upcoming meeting, if we could get an update from the bid. Be nice to have them here to do a presentation on how things are going so far. And I appreciate the update very much. I know that we're well represented there, but it'd be nice to have an update from them here at the board meeting if we could.
We will ask that they attend the February meeting. Is that satisfactory?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And then the second item that I had is I just wanted to publicly admit that I lost a bet. The bet going was that it would be 20 minutes was the over-under on how long before Mr. Murdoch would need the microphone to speak, and it was 58 minutes. And so I took the under, and I lost that bet. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Can I speak now?
Yeah. Now you can speak all you want.
Yeah, now you're good.
What, I wanted this, Mr. Diller's comment on the, Mr. Diller's comment on the bid. It'd be nice to get Alex as the new director to specifically, we don't want to see their board. We want to see him and understand kind of what he's doing. I think it would see where he is with the deal. So, because we're all engaged in the homeless problems and the things that are going on in our city. So, thank you.
Great. Mr. Laza.
And I assume we're going to get an update on SCI and where all our numbers came in on that. Anecdotally, I talked to a few people and just sat down and had a glass of water with some of the attendees, and they all love Reno. And it was kind of heartening to hear that. And they were impressed that how welcoming our city is, from taxi drivers to the hotels. So good job on everybody in Reno.
We are waiting on two major properties to provide their room pickup so we can report an accurate representation of what the economic impact was and the total citywide room pickup in the blocks. So I would assume we'll have that ready for the February meeting. Is that satisfactory? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I have to say a big thank you to staff and SMG for all the work they did for SCI and Renaissance. We did, Renaissance Hotel they had the opening night, the VIP reception for the board. It was a very nice, well-attended reception. It was nice to meet everybody and meet with their board and have a person-to-person discussion. But just walking through the convention center and seeing the setup was phenomenal. I mean, to see that convention center truly full. I mean, when you have exhibit booths at the front door, that's pretty neat. So it was a neat experience to have them back, and hopefully they had a wonderful show. From the few vendors that I did talk to that are friends of mine, they had a great show, and it was well attended, and they're happy to be back up north. So I want to make sure that we continue to do that. And then also the Alliance breakfast yesterday, if you were able to attend yesterday, that was the joint event between RSCVA, the Chamber, EDON, and the airport. Our fearful leader, Mr. DeLong, was able to stand up and give a presentation. In my opinion, I'm a little biased, was the best presentation. But it was well attended, and SMG did a wonderful job getting food out, and it was very tasty. It was great job. I think it was a great event to hold at the convention center and allow people to come see what we've done with the new carpet and different things like that. So I look forward to continuing to hold those events there. But just a big thank you to staff and SMG for all the work that they did for those couple events. So far they've done a phenomenal job. So. Any further comments?
I think I could provide some SCI data today. They did, I know many of the vendors, and with all of them unanimously commented how great it was to be back in Reno and how the city was so welcoming, not only from airport, their arrival at the airport, but when they went out at night, and many went to freestanding restaurants, and they said the entire community was just, oh, you're with SCI. Thank you for coming to town. We really appreciate the business. And that was resonant all throughout the community. Also, the airport authority was able to secure just shy of 8,000 outbound seats on Sunday. Those airlines experienced 96% load factor, so they were full. And so when we go back to those airlines next year to ask them to add seats, we feel that it'll be a much easier sell since they were sold out this past year. Also, many of the hotels in the community offered a free Sunday night room. That was to help drive departures to Monday to ease the air burden, and that was very, very well received. We think right around 20% of all the attendees took advantage of that. So also their auction program, they did well over $5 million in auction sales, which is an important revenue driver for them. And that means the right people were in town, that they had the money here, and they did exceedingly well. So,
great, thank you, Mr. Long. You know, one other item I'd ask for is that could we get a presentation from RSCVA for future meetings as well? I'd like to have them come and kind of, I know their new director, give us an update on the new direction of where RSCVA is going, what their intentions are, and how they are helping the airport and us in the area to increase airlift. I'd like to hear what the new, their new directions and priorities are.
If I can interrupt, absolutely. And Carl Roboto is rolling out the new strategic plan on Monday to the group. So probably February meeting is
February, March would be great. If we could get him on the board agenda, that would be fantastic. And then one last comment, and we'll close it out. We are doing a press conference with the airport today. The vice chair and I will be with Mr. DeLone and Ms. Marilee Mora at the airport at 11:30. We're inviting all board members to come if you so choose to be there. We will be presenting the TSA agents and the CBP agents with some gift cards during the furlough and the federal furlough. We feel that, obviously these individuals help keep our airport open and running and, are essential to our tourism market. And even though the federal government finds a challenge to not make sure that they get paychecks, we want to make sure these individuals have some sort of a stream so we can do what we can to help them. So we encourage, if any board member want to attend, please do, but we will be there at 11:30. So with that, seeing no other board member comments, I will open public comment. Is there any public comment at this time from anybody in the audience? Seeing no public comment, we will close. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.